What's going on, everybody? It's your boy KRYPTONIAN SAIYAN here, bringing you guys another review for Black Clover Chapter 342. And now that Chapter 342 is done in the books, we got a lot to talk about because last week left us with the major cliffhanger of Yami being called a clan killer, and this chapter picks up exactly where the last one left off. And we have some really awesome mythological references that actually tie back into the greater Black Clover story, including the underworld itself. The chapter opens up with Ichika speaking to Asta, and during this conversation that the two of them have throughout this chapter, we learn a lot of important things about Yami's backstory that we didn't know beforehand. The Yami clan are descendants of a group of assassins in the Land of Sun that made a name for themselves on the battlefield throughout the years. The Yami clan was tasked with protecting the province of the Land of Sun and also to protect the interests of Ryuya's clan. We then learn that in the Land of Sun there exists a legend which states that a five-headed dragon that long ago went off on a rampage and was appeased by a celestial maiden. It was said that it connected to the hell space through a space-time distortion, and some of its magical power leaked out, which caused the sea to turn black itself. We then get a brief training montage where we see Yami training with his father, who was a severe alcoholic, and we even see the man with the wooden training sword in one hand and his drinking bottle in his other hand when he's speaking to Yami, who's on the ground nursing a wound while his younger sister begins running towards them. We then see Yami's father as he looks at Ichika, and he gets noticeably angry and states that Ichika looks just like her, and then states that she died giving birth to a woman and that the Yami clan doesn't need anyone who can't fight. From this, we can gather that Yami's mother likely died giving birth to Yami's younger sister, and that Yami's father resents her for existing. Essentially, he lost his wife, and his wife gave birth to a woman instead of a son, and in his eyes, a daughter is less valuable than a son. A son can be viewed as an asset, a boy who can be molded into a warrior, versus a daughter who is a liability that must be protected until she's old enough to be married and placed into the protection of her future husband, which is completely ironic given how strong Ichika actually grows up to become. We then see Yami's father attempt to strike Ichika, but Yami steps up and blocks a hit in order to protect her. This leads to Yami's father shouting afterwards, and Yami leaving with Ichika following close behind him. Meanwhile, Yami's father is back to drinking as usual. It's then that we jump forward a bit and we see a gathering with Yami and his sister surrounded by what appear to be fishermen, and Ryuya shows up to begin conversing with them. We then learn that the idea of being indifferent to magic power levels and status, a world where people can live peacefully together, it's something that Yami isn't opposed to per se. However, he believes that it's only a dream at best. It's then that we have Ichika tell Asta that he cannot trust Yami because Yami lied, and at the age of 13 he killed their clan and he ran away to the Clover Kingdom. She goes on to say that Yami is just like their father. Then she stops and corrects herself, saying that he's even more of a killer, an assassin than their own father. We then shift over to a brutal panel where we see the dead bodies of the entire Yami clan dead on the ground, with only Yami standing there with his bloody katana, blood dripping off the edges onto the sand of the beach underneath the crescent moon sky. Very dark imagery right here. I love what Tabata did. We then see Yami with blood on his cheeks as he's turning over his shoulder to look at Ichika. From that moment there, for a moment, Asta appears to be stunned to silence, trying to process the information that he just heard from Ichika. However, his silence, it doesn't last too long because Asta doubles down on his faith in Yami, stating that Yami isn't that type of guy and that he believes him and he believes in Yami, and whatever Ichika thinks that she's seen isn't the Yami that he knows. The Yami that he knows is a Yami who he can have complete faith in. It's at this point that Asta realizes that they're in an impasse, with Asta making it clear that if he has to fight Ichika, he still won't accept what she has to say about Yami, which leads to Ichika whipping out her scroll, and it's at that very moment we can tell from her expression that this time will be different than their previous sparring match. This time she means business. Ichika's words are very pointed and they're very clear. She tells Asta to show her how much he defends and believes in Yami by showing her the strength that Asta gained underneath Yami's leadership, a man who she swears is a clan killer. We then get this really awesome double page spread where we see the battle lines have been drawn and things appear to be even more intense than ever before. The spell that Ichika uses gives her a dark dark magic armor suit, and she's got her katana drawn, and Asta for a moment looks like he's stunned, staring at death, which leads to Ichika saying very coldly that she will fight Asta seriously and doesn't care if Asta lives or die at this point. Now, we got to talk about what all this means right here. The five-headed dragon, that might have been connected to hell and the celestial being that fought it off. This opens up so many questions. I know it was a long-running theory in the fandom that there were angels in Black Clover and that angels might have been what sealed away the devils in hell, but making a devil and a hell connection to Yami's homeland is a very interesting tidbit to do, especially when we factor in the supposed celestial being who fought off the five-headed dragon. I know Tabata has pulled a lot when it comes to devil lore in the last few arcs of Black Clover, but a five-headed dragon and a seed being mentioned, the first thing that comes to my mind are two different things. One is less likely, which we'll start off with, and one I think is absolutely on the money. So the less likely one that comes to my head is what you have in the book of Revelations, where John saw a dragon rise up out the sea, but this dragon had 7 heads and 10 horns. However, the most likely reference in my opinion is Japanese mythology, where there's a five-headed dragon that's responsible for the hardships of the sea, and it required the water goddess to come down from the heavens in order to soothe the rage of the dragon, and the dragon ended up falling in love with the water goddess, and he proposed that they get married, but she rejected the proposal since the dragon had made hardships onto the fishing community itself. Now, the thing that really stands out here is the connection to hell that Tabata made here. It wasn't by mistake that Asta was fighting the time devil and ended up being sent here to the land of sun and learned something like this. The only question here though is there a connection to hell? And if there is, does Lucius know about it? And if he does, would he ever think to look for Asta here, or does he truly think that Asta's dead? Which that might be the case, and if it is, Lucius has just made a big mistake. Now, the connection to hell makes a lot of sense. It explains why there are fish there that have horns, because of what happened with the celestial being that fought the five-headed dragon in the Black Sea. Might be why the Yami clan is in possession of dark magic and why dark magic was ultimately needed for the Quillif, because that magic itself came from this five-headed dragon that had a connection to hell. Now, we don't know for certain why Yami killed his clan, or if Ichika might be an unreliable narrator, or if there are pieces that are missing to her story, similar to how Sasuke and Naruto didn't know the whole story behind the Uchiha Massacre. But all of these building blocks being left here has me very interested in where Tabata takes this next. Does he explore the underworld even more, or does he reveal later on that Yami was possessed by something or potentially someone? Tabata is playing with a major plot twist right here between Julius being the time devil, and you got this right here. It feels like he's making zinger after zinger, like he did with the elf plot twist and then the plot twist with Licht. There is more here, but the man right now has a really good setup going on. There are callbacks here that make a lot of sense about Yami's character too. Noelle was being blamed for the death of her mother, just as Ichika was, which explains why Yami accepted her into the Black Bulls and why Yami was the way he was with Noelle, because you could argue that there were times where Yami treated her like a younger sister. Now we know why. The underwater temple, in that arc we saw Noelle use the Sea Dragon's Roar spell at the underwater temple when they fought against Veto. This doesn't look like a random mistake now, because the mythology of the five-headed dragon, there was a water goddess, and the underwater temple in that arc could have potentially been originally made for a temple for the water goddess in order to be worshipped. Man, this was such a good chapter, and the cliffhanger leaves you wanting so much more. My chapter question to you guys is, why do you think Yami did what he did? Is he innocent? Is he guilty? Was he placed under a curse? While you think that over, click here for these other Black Clover and anime videos you see on the screen right now.